Hi, today I'm going to show you how to do an easy eyelet stitch scarf. It's worked on a flat panel, as a flat panel. I'm working with the Cindy Wood square Afghan loom using 14 pegs. This loom has the 5/8 inch gauge. The yarn I'm using today, or with this scarf, is loops and thread, charisma yarn. The color is bouquet. This yarn is carried by Michaels exclusively. One of my favorite yarns to work with, and it patterns and stripes really nicely. And with this stitch you get little tiny eyelets, holes throughout your scarf, and they're staggered, and even though it's a flat panel, both sides of this stitch for this scarf are very attractive. So here's one side, there's another. As you can see, both sides are very nice looking, and with this yarn it just stripes beautifully. This is an eyelet stitch. I'm not exactly sure what type of eyelet stitch this is called. I've been calling this my tour scarf because I started working on this scarf with while I was traveling with my husband's band from Wisconsin to New York and back over a 9-day period. So it's kind of been lots of places with me, and I'm almost done with it, but I wanted to share with you how to do the 6 rows that make up the body of this stitch, and then I'm going to show you how I bind off as well. So like I said, there are 6 rows that you keep repeating over and over until you get the desired length of your scarf. Typically, you want your scarf to be about as tall or as long as the height of the individual that the scarf is going to be for. So I'm like 5'4", so I'm making this for me, and it's right around, I held it up to my head and it just about reaches my feet, so I'm considering that I'm at the point where I'm done. If it was for a taller individual or shorter individual, or if I wanted to wrap it around more times for like our frigid Wisconsin winters, I would then make it longer. But anyways, enough of the small chat. We'll start right on. To begin the scarf, what I did was I just did an ewrap cast on, and I ewrap casted on pegs 1 through 14, and then I did a row of purl, and then I started right with this 6 row stitch repeat that I'm going to show you now. So the first row, after you've done your ewrap cast on and then your purl row, is that you're going to skip peg 1. You're not going to work this one. You've already worked it on your previous row, and this helps create these braided edges. I love using the slip stitch. As you can see, the edges give a nice braided look. I almost always use slip stitch edges on almost all of my flat panel scarves. It's rare when I don't. I just love how they look. It's a nice clean finished edge. So by skipping the first peg on each row and knitting the last peg of each row, you get that braided effect. So the first 2 rows are simply doing a row of knit, and we're using the ewrap knit stitch, and then a row of purl. So row 1 is ewrap. We're going to ewrap pegs. We're not doing anything with peg 1, but we're ewrapping pegs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. When it comes to 14, we're not going to ewrap, but we're going to do a U-wrap, or instead of doing a, sometimes it's referred to as a half stitch, but we're not going to do it, we're not going to work from like a typical ewrap, where we would go like from behind to the front. We're going to use it as like a turning peg, and we're going to do a U-wrap, bringing the working yarn to the front of the peg, and then behind and into the middle. So now that we've done the E-wrap on each one of the pegs and the U-wrap on the last peg, we can go ahead and knit off. I like to do from both ends, just so that it helps create an even tension. So I bring over my working yarn, I do some from this end, and then some from this end, working towards the middle. So now you've done the first row, which is just a skip stitch, E-wrapping pegs 2 to 13, and U-wrapping, doing a knit U-wrap stitch on the last peg 14. And now we're ready to begin row 2. And row 2 is a purl row. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip peg 14, and then we're going to purl pegs 13 to 2. And then the last peg, we're going to E-wrap. I find with purl rows, doing an E-wrap on the last stitch gives a more even edge. It matches the other side more. Just matches it better, giving it a nice overall look. So to do the purl stitch, we're starting here. We're skipping 14. We're not doing anything. Sometimes people will say skip or SK in a pattern. Other times people will say slip or SL. Basically all that means though is they're both the same things, you just don't work that peg. Other times you'll have patterns that call for you to work that peg. For this pattern we're not working the peg, first peg in the row. So the purl stitch, we're bringing our working yarn underneath the yarn in the peg, pulling it up, and we're creating this new loop. We're taking the loop that was off, the stitch that was off the peg, and putting that back on. Again, and I find it helpful just to sort of loosen that one stitch up. Working yarn goes below, and then you tighten it. And you keep doing the purl stitch, and if you need help with the purl stitch, there are videos that can show you a little bit more, slowly how to do the purl stitch. But this is row 2 of the eyelet stitch scarf, and we're just purling each peg. And again, we're doing 14 pegs on the square Afghan loom by Cindy Wood with 5/8 inch gauge. You could also use a round loom and work as a flat panel, or a different gauge loom. If you wanted to use like a thinner yarn, the Cindy Wood 1/2 inch gauge looms would work as well. To use like a worsted weight yarn for this scarf. You could cast on more pegs or less pegs, depending on the width you wanted for the scarf as well. And so now we're back here. This is peg 1. We're purling peg 2. And then the last peg in the row, peg 1, we're doing an E-wrap. And we're knitting that and then bringing it over. So there we have completed rows 1 and 2. Now comes the fun part. For row 3, we're going to be we're skipping peg 1, we're E-wrapping peg 2, and then we're going to be doing a series of knit 2 togethers and yarn overs. The yarn overs are going to be flat yarn overs. We're not going to be E-wrapping, we're just going to be doing a flat stitch, which I'll show you as we go. But the first step is we're skipping peg 1. We're going to knit using the E-wrap peg 2, and then we're going to be knitting 2 together. So what we do is we bring the stitch, we want to knit 2 together on peg 3. So we're bringing the stitch from 4 over to peg 3 on top of that loom. See how there's 2 now, and this one's empty. And then we're going to be doing a yarn over on this peg. I find it helpful to just go ahead and move all the stitches that we need to knit 2 together. And since we're just doing a knit 2 together, yarn over, every other peg should have an empty one, and then the one next to it should have 2 loops on it. So you just bring it over and put it on top of the peg that was already there. And so I have 2 stitches on pegs 3, 5, 7, now 9, 10 is empty, 11 we're going to be doing a knit 2 together. So we're moving the stitch from 12 over to peg 11. 12 is empty. 13 we're going to be doing an ewrap, and 13 we're going to be doing an ewrap, and then 14 we're going to be doing a ewrap. So now your loom is all set up to do the knit 2 together with the yarn over. So we already did the ewrap on peg 2, and now we're just going to go, we're going to ewrap, peg 3, yarn over. We're not going to work anything, we're just bringing the working yarn and laying it flat across the peg, ewrap peg, the next peg, yarn over the empty peg, ewrap the peg that's to the next side, yarn over the empty peg, ewrap, yarn over, just your working yarn is going flat over, ewrap the peg that has the 2 stitches on, yarn over the empty peg. Now we're going to ewrap. This is now peg 13, and we're going to do a ewrap on peg 14. Now we have all of our stitches ready to work over. I'm going to knit over this last peg just right away so that I don't unravel my work. And then I'm going to start from sort of both sides. You're bringing both bottom loops up over the top new one that you've created. The pegs that you've done the yarn overs on, you're not doing anything to these until the next row. And if you find that it's too tight to bring both of the stitches up over at once, you can do one at a time. But the main thing is you want to make sure that there's only one stitch that remains on those pegs that have the 2 loops. And so here we are at peg 3. Usually I start kind of going from back to forth to keep it even, but and you bring it down and you can see you've got the little staggered holes, or the eyelets, that were created from doing that row now. So that is the end of row 3, which was a row where we knit 2 together and do the yarn over using the flat yarn over. And now we're ready to begin row 4.